Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. If you are new around here and finding yourself on my channel for the first time today, don't forget to check out that subscribe button because we drop an update just like this one around 1 p.m. UK time every single day to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And that's exactly what we are intending on doing in this video. We're going to be starting the video off by talking about the macroeconomic situation and how this is actually very supportive for some of the targets that we have for Bitcoin, 150K, and a lot of the targets that we have for some of our altcoins, which after triggering either patterns or taking key levels of significance on volume, are now moving towards higher ground. And we'll be looking at the total 2, which is a chart I haven't really seen anybody doing technical analysis on, to show you guys that we think the total cryptocurrency market, excluding Bitcoin, is now going to move to $3.7 trillion, which is larger than the entire cryptocurrency market got back in 2021 at the height of the bull market. So it's going to be a great time for markets generally. Crypto is going to be the fastest horse in that race, the fastest horse or the fastest person out of a burning building, which is the sort of fiat systems I've often described. The great game is the proliferation of fiat systems, money itself, not just the US dollar, but the pound, the euro. And we're all trying to kind of run away from the exploding building. And crypto is the one that's furthest ahead and going to be the least scathed. You know, you've got other assets that might get a little bit caught in the explosion. But we'll be talking about all that. We're going to be looking at Bitcoin, and we're going to be talking about a real narrative that seems to be at the forefront of everything right now, and that is real world assets. This is obviously on the back end of what Larry Fink said nearly a year ago now in regards to he believes the future of markets is the tokenization. Lots of people speculating on a number of plays. We'll share some of them with you. You've got things like Ondo Finance and others. I'm going to be doing a video later on where I talk about how Hedera is actually very well positioned for all of this. But we'll save that for the video later on this evening. Let's start things off with the kind of macro situation. So we've looked at a number of things. We've looked at the global liquidity index. And this was actually something that Raul posted. Now, we're not the biggest fan of Raul from an investment as an investor or even a trader, but he has some great takes and has a great platform. And the title of this piece says, "Here comes the sun." I know it's the first week of March, but macro/crypto summer is now upon us. Macro summer is when the business cycle bottoms and begins to rise following the financial conditions index, which leads by about 10 months. Sometimes the ISM bottoms early in macro summer years, and sometimes it bottoms later. Note the near perfect 3.5 year cyclicality in the ISM business cycle caused by the everything code, the debt refi cycle. This was the chart that launched the entire everything code thesis. So this is looking at the ISM manufacturing PMIs. I think we've got ISM this week actually in regards to economic data. This pretty perfectly actually aligns with what we're looking at in regards to global liquidity and where we think that liquidity is going to come from in the form of the Fed stepping back into the bond market. Now, the Fed have been doing QT, and that QT was essentially to just basically not rebuy or refinance the bonds that they had on their balance sheets, let them run off. That was their form of QT. Actually, Jerome Powell last Wednesday came out and said they're going to stop that. It's not going to be long before they start adding to the balance sheet. They have to. Just last week overnight, the US added $1.2 trillion worth of debt after a bill that was passed. The Treasury is roughly adding about $1 trillion worth of debt every 100 days. So who the hell is going to be buying these bonds in an environment where interest rates are set to come down? It's going to have to be the Fed. They're the buyer of last resort. They always are. And this is what's going to see global liquidity cycle do well. We're seeing this in the 20-year treasuries. Why do we talk about all this on a crypto channel? Because crypto is, again, the fastest horse in the race, in a proliferation race. So they're going to continue to devalue the fiat systems because it's the only route forward that they can do. And because it's a bigger snowball, it's collecting more mass as it goes down the hill. And crypto is the best performer out of all of that. And we don't just get that from our own sort of thesis on things. We also get that from looking at Bitcoin against the likes of the SPY, which is in a clear uptrend and been following what we set out for it since down here, the NASDAQ, and of course, gold. So we are very, very well positioned. And on top of all that, we're looking at a lot of things technically that support, or that the macro narrative, which we think is a bullish one for risk, is going to support. And we're looking at this right here, which is the total 2. So this is everything in the cryptocurrency market, excluding Bitcoin. This right shoulder, which we have essentially called early, is likely going to be taken or be fulfilled. And that's going to see the total cryptocurrency market cap go from $1.1 trillion all the way to 3.7. You can see how we're building a kind of 360 view of the markets here. It's part of what we do here at Allincrypto. Unfortunately, guys, we are now sold out in regard to Patreon. I don't want to grow things too fast. You know, the people that have decided to become patrons, it's really important that I kind of nurture that and don't grow to the point where we have too many members and kind of miss things out. So we will be reopening that at some point. Unfortunately, probably for this week, it's going to be sold out. There might be some people that end up leaving and you can fill their spots. But we will be looking to open that more broadly. We've got huge demand in regards to the Patreon. You know, because we're really doing something quite spectacular. And we're looking into some really interesting things at the moment. We've got some really small plays that we think are going to do well in the kind of deep in computing sector and also in a number of other sectors like data storage. So this is what we're looking at. I've not seen anybody analyze the total 2 and kind of spot this pattern as of yet. I think we're the first on to publicly come out with all this. But this is a really good sign. I think Bitcoin's going to do very well. Remember, we do have that, again, supported by the macro narrative, and it's been getting followed beautifully and respected. 151K Bitcoin target. You are just pausing, like you did in the prior cycle, around all-time highs. And this is the first ever cycle where Bitcoin's gone in to put in a new all-time high pre-halvening. The halvening is like 20-something days away. Even Robert Kiyosaki chiming in on it again, somebody who I respect. I've got some of his books actually behind me, but somebody who I wouldn't follow as an investor or a trader. You know, but again, people with great macro takes. Excuse me. The last thing I want to talk about, so that's kind of covered, you know, largely where we're at in regards to the crypto space. The global liquidity cycle, the ISM manufacturing cycle, all gives us this macro narrative coupled in with where we think the dollar's going, where we think yields are going, what we think is happening with bonds, all couples in with what we're looking at technically for the crypto space. And it's a bullish time that we have ahead of us. And that you could break it right down to the micro, looking at small altcoins or small stocks. We've got a list of stage 2 stocks that we don't really talk about on the channel because this is a crypto channel. But if we take a look at some of these, you know, Coinbase has been a beautiful stock for us, well and truly on its way to its target. This is all textbook charting or chart analysis. You know, we've got things like GitLab, Sentinel-1. You know, Robinhood was a recent call that we made back down here to get long on. Something like Spotify's done spectacular for us. We got loads of everything looks really bullish, and these are just some small stocks. They look largely like what altcoins are doing right now, but we won't go too much into all this. Let's move on and let's talk actually about real world assets. Now, Twitter is a buzz right now with this narrative of real world assets. Now, this has been something we've been looking at for a while. I think my biggest play on real world assets, not in the actual form of tokenizing them, but in the form of actually enabling them, is Chainlink. So just to show you a Chainlink chart very quickly, this is ready to rock and roll. This again, textbook charting and analysis. You see how you're adhering to this support right here? This is getting ready for a big move. We think it's going to get to $64 potentially by the end of this year. But that is for maybe a video where we could recap on all that at a later date. But you can see Twitter is a buzz with this real world asset narrative. Everyone's chiming in on it as this real big sector. There's going to be winners and losers, but the space likely is going to do very well as a whole. You are going to see the tokenization of literally everything. Blockchain is going to enable that. It's very interesting that blockchain finds itself at the convergence, or I should say distributed ledger technology, because some things aren't blockchains. You know, they aren't just these linear blockchains. We now have DAGs, which are this really interesting concept. It's interesting how distributed ledger technology literally finds itself at the convergence of everything. I'm going to be releasing an interview that I did with Kilt Protocol later on today where we talk about digital identities and how you can actually take power back over your digital identities in the same way you can with Bitcoin, money, or whatever you want to call it, a store of value, or some of these smart contract protocols. But real world assets are going to be a huge thing. And the real world assets that end up facilitating the world we're moving towards, and remember BlackRock has already started a trust on Ethereum, are going to be trillion-dollar companies potentially. We're yet to see a trillion-dollar altcoin. There are going to be altcoins out there, mark my words on this, that get to $1 trillion. You are this space hasn't even been allowed to become a space yet. from an institutional point of view because of the grey regulations that the SEC is putting down. It's a little bit more progressive in other countries, but certainly the US being the main one, and we've seen that with the ETF inflows and what that's done, they're still a little bit, they're not very progressive on the whole thing. But this is super interesting. You know, we can leave links to some of this. It's about finding the gems, finding the right ones and looking at how they technically look. I'll probably be doing a Patreon video on this. But you've got some really small plays here that I'll be taking a technical look at that could do very, very well. Some really, really small ones that will probably be a little bit harder to get your hands on. But Twitter right now is abuzz with this narrative of real world assets. And I think ultimately, you know, it's very likely that they do well. And there's an opportunity in here, just like there's a massive opportunity with DeepIn, with, you know, computing more broadly. Probably the main narratives for me, the biggest narrative I see in the crypto space is DeepIn. I think real world assets is up there. I think DeepIn's, if you look at the world we're moving towards, I'm not sure what I'm doing here with my hand. If you look at the world we're moving towards, the data or compute is literally going to be like oil in the digital world that we're moving towards. And decentralized systems are absolutely of the utmost importance that we have. And actually centralized entities, just like centralized entities will use public blockchains, will use public decentralized infrastructure. This is huge, and we will be bringing you lots more videos and actually interviewing lots of projects that are actually looking to facilitate that in the coming weeks and months. Guys, that's really all I've got for you. So we've highlighted the broad sort of macro. We've looked at Bitcoin, what it's currently doing, what the total 2 is doing. Very interesting chart. Leads us to a very bullish conclusion along with everything else that we've kind of coupled with it. And we've spoken a little bit about a narrative that is kind of gripping Twitter right now and probably the broader crypto space, which is real world assets. That you guys could probably do quite well on as an opportunity. So that's really all I've got for you guys. If you've enjoyed this content, like is greatly appreciated. So as a comment, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next one.